The Metal Book podcast continues. Welcome to the second episode of the series. In this episode, we're going to discuss a recent phenomenon. Fact about me: I watch TikTok. Sometimes I like to sit down and scroll through TikTok. It's a good way to relax, have fun, and discover something new. There are TikTok videos dedicated to different types of things: music, animals, cooking, and so on. And then there's this certain type of TikTok videos dedicated to books. It's called Booktok. On Booktok, people make videos about books they bought, read, loved, hated, quit, gave away, and so on. It's kinda like BookTube, but the videos are shorter, faster, and there's more music available to use. In recent years, some books got extremely popular on Booktok. People talk about them, make videos dedicated to them, encourage others to read these books, and so on. Out of all books popular on TikTok, I only read Normal People by Leonie, and I even found out about this book before I downloaded TikTok. And I only managed to read it because I borrowed it. I saw it in the bookstore, but I thought there were books I needed more than Normal People. But when I saw it at one of my childhood friends' house, I didn't mind borrowing. Did I like the book? Well, it was better than I expected. Do I want to buy a copy of my own? Thank you very much, I'll pass. There are still books I need more. I talked about this book on my channel. Feel free to check out my April 2023 video. I got the idea for this trend from the book Leo, therefore special thanks to her for making this video called "Is TikTok Ruining Reading and the Desire to be a Reader?" Whether TikTok is actually ruining reading or not is not the topic of this rant. If you're interested, I'll leave the link to Leonie's video. If there's no link or it doesn't open, go to YouTube and search "Is TikTok Ruining Reading and the Desire to be a Reader?" She goes through every aspect of Booktok criticism and she comes up with valid explanations. In this rant, I want to talk about the obvious parallels between Booktok and mainstream music. That's right, you heard it. There are parallels between the two, despite the Booktok being a new trend, and I am going to go through them. Another fact about me, if you haven't guessed already, I am a huge music nerd. I listen to music every day. I have multiple playlists on Spotify. I like to explore different genres and artists from time to time. I do have a separate rant about listening to old favorites. You can check it out on my channel. It's called "Why It's Okay to Stick to Your Favorite Bands/Artists." I will link it in the description. Because I am a music nerd, I noticed parallels between Booktok and music that finds its way into the mainstream. So let's go through them. There are several points. Point number 1. You know about them because they are everywhere. This is the first thing that comes to mind. Close your eyes, dear viewer, and think of a popular song by a popular artist. Wherever you go, you hear that song. You go to a restaurant, it is on the radio. You go to a shopping center, it's on the radio. You attend a party, someone decides to play it loud, and so on. You may dislike the song, you may be indifferent to it, you may be tired of it, but you still know about it, and you are going to hear it quite often. It's the same with Booktok Books. When you open Booktok, you encounter certain books a lot. You're not interested in them? You read them and dislike them? Or maybe you even like them, but you are kinda done with them, you don't want to hear about them again? Well, you're going to hear about them anyway. If you aren't a die-hard fan of these books and you are tired of them, I have good news for you. These books are going to be around for a while. This leads us to the next point. Point number 2. It's going to be popular until the next big thing arrives. Here's a general unspoken rule about mainstream music. Once in a few years, there's a young artist who makes a few massive hits, and in rare cases albums. Their hits are played everywhere, they gain huge popularity, which lasts for a few years. Then a new artist arrives and takes over, and the cycle repeats. Afterwards, the old artist either sinks into oblivion or is viewed purely through the lens of nostalgia. At best, the old artist manages to reinvent themselves and gain a new audience, and thus remain relevant. Speaking of nostalgia, I noticed how differently mainstream songs age compared to rock and metal. One of my all-time favorite albums is Demons and Wizards by Uriah Heep. How do you think, when did this album come out? 1972. It's more than 50 years old. I listened to it again the other day. I love how diverse this album is. No song sounds like the other. You have chill songs like The Wizard and Paradise, uplifting songs like Traveler in Time and The Spell, slow songs like Rainbow Demon and Circle of Hands, fast songs like Easy Living and All My Life. And you have something in between with Poet's Justice. And all of these songs sound so fresh. It seems like this album exists beyond the space and time. My point here is that an album made in 1972 feels timeless. Now think of any mainstream song from 2017, and I'm sure your next thought is going to be, oh, that's so 2017. Now you see what I'm hinting at. Yes, certain books on Booktok are very popular in 2023. But will they still be read and discussed in around 5 years? If yes, then how many of them will still be relevant in years to come? These are open questions. And now I want to go to a pre-TikTok example. I remember the days when The Maze Runner was everywhere. It was around the time the films came out, around 2014 or 15. Good times, actually. The first film was fun, and I'm still fond of it. And I liked the books, at least the first one. Nowadays, the series is mostly a piece of nostalgia. Good nostalgia, that's why I still keep the series on my bookshelves. But people don't seem to talk about these books anymore. I guess they moved on to other series, which are much more relevant. In her video, Leonie made a good point about how the TikTok algorithm works. In short, TikTok tries to keep you glued to the screen. Well, that sounds kinda ironic. So it originally offers you statistically popular books. What she did not mention, however, is that the TikTok algorithm isn't loyal to these particular books. TikTok algorithm is loyal to whatever brings views in general. Just like mainstream songs, mainstream Booktok books shall remain in the spotlight for a limited time, and eventually the algorithm is going to move on from them. The next big thing will come and eclipse everything else. It may be a recent book or a book published a few years ago that was originally overlooked. Then the next big thing also will become a thing of the past and the cycle shall repeat. I am sure there are going to be Booktok books which are going to stand the test of time. Sure, good for them. Now move on to the next point. Point number 3. The spotlight is extremely exclusive. Now take a look at the mainstream music scene. What do you see? You see a few very popular artists. The songs they make belong to more or less the same genres. The safest genres which are allowed to find their way into the mainstream. But what if you aren't a fan of these genres or artists themselves? What if your soul leans towards something beyond what's popular? What if you long for something more daring or more exciting? Well, you won't see that music in the mainstream. And even if you do, you'll only see particular artists or songs, and your genre or artist won't be as popular as those in the mainstream. Well, at least that's the case for metalheads. Now imagine this situation. You read an amazing book by an amazing author, and you want to see TikTok videos about them. Is your book Booktok famous? If not, good luck finding videos about said book. At some point, you'd even have to make videos about the book yourself if you want such videos on TikTok. This is what I do actually. I make videos about the books that I don't see on Booktok that much. Just like mainstream music, Booktok is extremely exclusive. Only certain books, authors, and genres are allowed in the spotlight. Sometimes you see a few other books, but the Booktok reading list is more or less the same. Out of all criticisms, Booktok gets the same 20 book recommendations is the most valid one. It's the most valid criticism. It excludes other tastes and the vast majority of readers. And even there is a change. I doubt that it's the general concept of highlighting a few books that is going to change. The books, I believe, are going to change, but the concept itself, I don't think so. Point number 4. You can easily predict what it's going to be about. This is a short point. It's no secret that the majority of mainstream music strictly follows the existing formulas and trends. This is one of the reasons behind point number 2. Playing with them, ignoring them, or even making new ones like other forms of art do, that is out of question. It has to be as safe as possible. Now you don't have to dive deep into the mainstream hits to understand what they're about. If you heard a few of them, you heard them all. Once in a while there's going to be at least one song to grab your attention, but the formula remains the same. It's kinda the same with Booktok books. You can look at them, observe the covers, read the annotation, and understand everything. Point number 5. The vast majority of nice things can be found beyond the mainstream. Related to the previous point, to be honest. Within mainstream music you can find nice things, like less than 1% of them. But beyond the mainstream you can find more than 99% of nice things. For example, I have a playlist with my all-time favorite songs on Spotify. I even made a video about it, feel free to check it out. I need to make an updated version because there's more now. As for April 2023, there are songs by 81 artists. Which of them I discovered beyond the mainstream? Well, I can say that almost all of them. Okay, granted, this is a bit tricky issue because in this case there's a difference between music and books. Booktok is a recent phenomenon, whereas mainstream music existed for decades. People bought books before Booktok, but let's imagine for a while that Booktok is as old as the mainstream music itself. Even in that case, it can be said that the vast majority of nice things exist beyond Booktok. After Normal People, I thought I wouldn't read another Booktok book again. But before I was about to return to the book to the owner, I found out what Daisy Jones and the Six was about. In short, it's about a rock band in the 70s. Because I love books about rock and metal bands, I got curious. Then I remembered that I saw this book where I had previously borrowed Normal People. I have this book right now, in April 2023, and I haven't read that book yet, but I'm sure it's going to be in the category of nice things. Yeah, I have high expectations. I expect this book to be a gem. I do think it's possible to find the gems in the mainstream. Yes, I expect Daisy Jones and the Six to be one. It's just difficult to find gems in the mainstream. It's easier to find great things elsewhere. Here comes the last point, although it's not exactly a major point, but more a personal perception. Even though it's personal, I do think it's worth pointing it out anyway, and I'm going to say this. Booktok books and mainstream music are so unappealing. Seriously, when I look at Booktok books, I think, nah, I'm not interested in this. Mainstream music also fails to amuse me. In rare moments I do check out on mainstream stuff in hopes to find gems. What I see makes me want to give up. When I borrowed Daisy Jones and the Six, I also borrowed Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I'm thinking of quitting that book. I just don't find it exciting. I think it's kinda dull and I'm just indifferent to what's going on. One thing that makes me happy is that mainstream things can't eradicate the nice things I already have, especially when it comes to music. I don't know what I would have been listening to if I didn't come across metal in the last decade. Maybe I'd still be listening to film soundtracks and songs from Disney, Shrek, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Or I would have given up on music entirely. That would have been possible, I guess. Well, metal is my dominant genre, and even the non-metal artists I like have something metal in them. I think that's because the artists I like, both metal and non-metal, they are keen on using folk elements in their music. Anyway, we have come to an end of this rant. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I showed you a different perspective on book talk. Make your own conclusions. I'd like to finish this rant by saying this. Don't let the mainstream narrow your interests and views. There's always an alternative, and in most cases, it's a better one. Okay, that was all. Once again, thank you for listening. I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.